Today, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be honoring St. Clare of Assisi, monastic. And some of you may remember that she was a fellow of St. Francis. She heard about him and knew what she wanted to do. She also came from a very wealthy family. They did not want her to become a religious, a monastic, but she also did away with all of her riches and eventually joined a monastery, a women's monastery. And you have most of the information here. But one of the things that I wanted to say is that it is really hard, I think you all know this, it is really hard to hear these readings, including the gospel, that tells us to get rid of all of our stuff. I mean, come on, folks. How much of it can we get rid of? But the way that I live, and it's a way of thinking about it, for other people at least, is we are not all called to be monastics, but we are called to put our material things last. Well, of course, we need running water and some clothing, and I don't have any problem, and I don't think any of the monastics that I know have any problem with people having things, but as you all know, and I'm probably speaking for everyone here, we all have too much stuff. And you may have heard this before, but if you look at your checkbook, of course you probably don't need to use one now, but if you look at your computer and you see where all of your money is going, you just might be cringing, as I often have, to see where a lot of that goes, and that our hearts are not mainly on doing things for the poor. Our hearts are not mainly worshiping God. Our hearts are not honoring the things that Jesus wants us to honor. So I think it's good that at times we think about these things and we try to do harder. That's all we can do. In life, I think when we are younger, most of us just want things. Those of you that have children, why bother taking them to the store? Because they're just going to hang on you and say, buy me that and buy me that. But if you live in a way that honors the words of the Gospels, your children will also end up living that way as well. It may look different than what you do. My children, the way they act looks very different from what I do, but they are still honoring the gospel. And it's just not the way that I would do it. So there's just a few things in here that I did want to point out. In the beginning, Clare, of course, being a woman, was not even looked at, but she prevailed, and she soon was taken by Francis to a poor dwelling beside the church of St. Damian at Assisi. And several other women joined her. She became the superior of the order, and she was called, and the order became Poor Ladies of St. Damian, and later Poor Clares. And there are Poor Clares here in the United States. There is at least one Episcopal order of Poor Clares. And I don't know if it's the same one that I knew of when I first joined the church, but I think it's great that the tradition keeps on. In Italian, Clare's name is Chiara, which is light, and for all that she gave up, ultimately, her light did shine before God. Amen.